Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something really quite profound. We're looking at the power of our thoughts, specifically the negative ones, through the lens of, well, some pretty specific esoteric instructions from H.P. Blavatsky's Inner School. This is really our chance to understand and maybe start tackling those mental blocks that, can really get in the way.
And what's immediately striking, I think, is the perspective. It's not just about feeling a bit off. These teachings frame thoughts as active forces. They have real, tangible consequences for our spiritual path, our environment, even our karma. It's quite a different way of looking at it.
Exactly. It goes much deeper than just, think positive. So our mission today is to really unpack the core wisdom from these instructions. We want to explore Blavatsky's view on what negative thoughts are, why they're considered so dangerous, and crucially, the practical ways to actually gain some mastery over them. The aim is to give you, the listener, some solid, actionable insights for inner change drawn directly from this, well, unique source material.
Yes, and that's precisely what we're drawing from. These specific esoteric instructions attributed to Blavatsky.
Okay, let's dive in then. Where do these negative thoughts actually come from, according to this framework? What's going on inside?
Well, the instructions point to this interaction, this kind of interplay between what's called our lower mental aspect, the lower manas, and our passional nature, which is known as kama.
Karma, that's like our desires, earthly attachments, that kind of thing.
Pretty much, yeah. It's the seat of those fundamental, sometimes animalistic desires and our ties to the material world. Selfish impulses, emotional reactions, that sort of thing.
Okay.
And the lower manas, which is our everyday thinking mind, gets easily swayed by our senses and by these comic desires. So when the lower manas gets tangled up with kama, well, that's when you get thoughts rooted in selfishness, anger, envy, the whole lot.
So it's not random. There's a specific mechanism.
Exactly. It stems from that connection, that interplay.
And there's a specific starting point, isn't there?
Yeah.
I think the instructions mention thought itself as the trigger.
Absolutely. It's very direct. It says something like, the origin of bodily desires is in thought. Thought acts on the brain, lower manas as agent. Brain acts on bodily organs, then desire awakens. So thought kicks it all off.
Wow. So the thought itself is the seed. It makes you really consider what you're letting germinate up there.
Mm.
But it's not just conscious thought, is it? There's something about the body having its own habits.
Yes, the physical body is described as having this kind of automatism. It's called a thing of habit. Once the lower manas sort of imprints these negative patterns onto the body tends to just repeat them, like muscle memory, but for negative impulses.
Ah, I see. So it makes it easier to fall back into those old patterns.
Exactly. It's like digging a groove that the mind keeps slipping into.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
We all know those automatic loops. But there are also external factors mentioned, the astral light.
Right. The astral light. It's pictured as this universal medium reflecting everything. And within it, especially in its lower levels, are these kama-manasic astral currents. These apparently carry images of lust vice inoculating crime desire.
Whoa.
Yeah. And people who are more sensitive or perhaps morally weaker can be affected by these. It's almost like picking up on bad vibes, but much more potent.
Like a kind of psychic pollution almost.
You could say that. Imagine it like a vast invisible library containing all thoughts and feelings. Some sections are uplifting, others not so much.
Okay, that's quite a concept. And then there are the skandhas, these karmic residues. Can you break that down a bit?
Skandhas.
Yeah.
Think of them as lingering vibrations or echoes from our past negative thoughts and actions. They exist on apparently all levels of our being. They're linked to those pictures in the astral light we just mentioned. They're like dormant seeds from past lives or even earlier in this life.
Seeds.
Yeah.
So they can sprout again.
That's the idea. They can be reactivated, predisposing the mind towards certain negative patterns. They sort of pull us towards situations that resonate with those old energies. Like our past negativity isn't just gone, it's still subtly influencing us.
Okay, so it's this complex mix. Our own lower desires, bodily habits, external astral influences, and this baggage from the past, all feeding into negative thoughts. That paints quite a picture. So let's get into the dangers. Why are they considered so perilous in these teachings? It's clearly more than just having a bad day.
Oh, absolutely. The consequences are presented as really far-reaching. First off, they corrode our inner being. They fundamentally obstruct spiritual insight. Blavatsky emphasizes that purity of mind is more important than purity of body. An impure mind, full of negativity, is described as a clouded upadi. That's the vehicle or instrument our consciousness uses.
Like a dirty lens.
Exactly. If the instrument is clouded, it cannot preserve recollections from a higher state. You just can't perceive clearly.
So it blocks guidance from our higher self, like static on the line.
Precisely. Negative thoughts obscure that connection. They prevent the mental vehicle from reflecting the wisdom of the spiritual ego, the higher self. They can even, as it's put, soil the outer garment of our inner divine spark.
That's quite an image. And what happens if this negativity really takes hold?
Well, the teachings warn that the lower manas can become crystallized with this karmic negativity. It gets assimilated with matter. This hinders the crucial union of manas, our personal consciousness, with buddhi, the spiritual soul, a union essential for real spiritual progress, for adeptship.
And there's an even more extreme warning, isn't there?
Yes, the terrible possibility of soul death. This is described as the severance of the personal soul from the divine ego during life. It results in what's called a morally living corpse, basically a personality cut off from further spiritual evolution.
Wow. That is incredibly stark. It really underlines the seriousness.
Yeah.
But the impact isn't just internal, right?
Yeah.
You mentioned something about creating things, entities.
Yes, elementals. Intense negative thoughts are said to actually generate these semi-conscious astral forces, and the quote is very clear. Every elemental thrown out by man must return to him sooner or later. It's that karmic boomerang.
So our bad thoughts come back to bite us.
Literally, in this view. But worse, these thought forms can also be implanted in others. They can spread.
So my negativity could actually affect someone else energetically.
That's the teaching. These entities born from our own negativity contribute to those lower astral realms. These realms are seen as the source of tempting images that can lead to widespread problems, epidemics of vice, cycles of disasters, catastrophes. It puts a huge responsibility on our mental hygiene.
It really does. It's a sobering thought that our inner state could ripple out like that. And of course, the direct karmic impact on ourselves.
Absolutely central. Negative thoughts are simply seeds for future suffering. They create bad karma. The instructions say karma watches actions thoughts, and any transgression against Holy Ghost, higher self, is essentially unpardoned. Interestingly, even the higher ego, though considered perfectly guiltless, still experiences the repercussions in future lives from the personality's negativity.
So our higher nature isn't totally shielded from what we do down here.
It seems not. It emphasizes how interconnected it all is, and for anyone actually trying to walk a spiritual path, these thoughts are obviously huge obstacles.
Right. They must directly contradict the necessary qualities.
Completely. Think of the prerequisites mentioned, like in the Golden Stairs teaching a pure heart, an unveiled spiritual perception. You simply can't achieve the inner quiet needed for concentration and spiritual perception if your mind is constantly churning with negativity.
Makes sense. Hard to hear the subtle stuff if there's loud noise.
Exactly. And there's another caution. Acting with partiality or selfishness, even if you think you're doing good, can be seen as a form of unwitting black magic. Because true spiritual work requires perfect and absolute impartiality.
So intention and purity of motive are paramount.
Yes, and beyond that, within a group context, like disciples working together, one person's negative state can apparently drag down the whole group because of this psychic interconnectedness.
So it's a personal and a collective responsibility.
Okay.
We've established the origin, the very real dangers. It sounds quite daunting. But surely there's a way through this. These teachings must offer solutions, right? A path to mastery.
Oh, definitely. It's not just about diagnosing the problem. The esoteric instructions lay out a pretty detailed path, a kind of inner alchemy for overcoming these negative thoughts.
Okay, good. Where did that path begin? What's the first step?
The absolute foundation, the sine qua non, is purity. A master is quoted as saying, a clean life is the first step on the golden stairs. And this means purity of body, yes, but even more importantly, purity of mind, heart, and spirit.
So mental and emotional purity takes precedence even over the physical.
That's the emphasis. And the core strategy is to tackle the thought before it breeds desire. The advice is to slay wrong thought before desire can be extinguished. We need to guard thoughts as generators of action.
Guard them, because they're that powerful.
Extremely. The warning is stark. 5 minutes thought can undo 5 years' work.
Wow. That really puts it into perspective. So how do we practically guard them?
One technique mentioned is the instantaneous rejection of impure thoughts during waking consciousness. The idea is, through diligent practice, you build an automatic habit. You just swat the thought away the moment it appears. This habit can even, apparently, protect you during sleep.
Like Building a mental reflex. Vigilance is key then.
Constant vigilance, yes. But it's not just about rejecting the negative. It's also, perhaps more powerfully, about actively cultivating the positive, especially connection with the higher self.
Ah, so replacing the negative with something higher.
Exactly. Elevating consciousness and aligning with the higher self is seen as the most potent antidote.
And how is that done? Is there mention of the heart?
Yes, very much so. The heart is considered the seat of spiritual consciousness, the manifested God within representing Atma Buddhimanas, the higher triad. We're advised to center consciousness in the heart and listen for its promptings, and even to actively concentrate on the master as a living man within you. Make his image in your heart.
That sounds like a deep meditative practice. Focusing inward on that core. What else helps elevate consciousness?
Focused concentration on the higher self itself. The goal is to train the brain to become receptive or negative only to that higher consciousness, to make it a blank to all but the higher consciousness, while becoming positive or impervious to lower astral noise, like tuning your radio very precisely.
Tuning out the static. I like that. I also remember reading something about fixing the fourfold lower higher. What does that mean?
Right. That refers to consciously taking your four lower aspects, physical body, energy or vitality, emotions, and lower mind, and with sustained will, sort of pinning their focus onto a higher state. Imagine them as, say, four horses. You're consciously directing them upwards towards spirit instead of letting them roam freely into lower desires. It's about aligning your whole lower being with your higher aspirations.
Ah, okay. A conscious alignment of all the parts of ourselves.
Yeah.
And meditation on virtues fits in here too.
Yes, meditating on the paramitas, the transcendental virtues like compassion, patience, wisdom, and contemplating the ideal of the inner divine man, your own higher self, helps attune the mind to those frequencies. It imprints positive patterns.
Makes sense. And strengthening the antaskarana, that bridge.
Crucial. The antaskarana is that subtle bridge connecting the everyday personality to the higher self. Pure thought, spiritual aspirations, that constant upward striving, all that strengthens this connection, allowing wisdom to flow down. Its importance is stressed. The fate of incarnation depends on antaskarana restraining kamamanas. Its only salvation. Break this might become animal.
Wow. So that bridge is absolutely vital for our human spiritual journey.
Yeah.
But this isn't just head stuff, right? Inner work has to show up in our lives.
Absolutely. Ethical living is non-negotiable. It has to manifest externally. This means living by principles like those golden stairs, again. Open mind, pure heart, eager intellect, unveiled spiritual perception, true brotherliness, loyalty and duty, defending the attacked, and central to all that is developing unselfish, universal love of humanity, and actively working on the suppression of personality selfishness, which is called the cause all sin human sorrow.
And avoiding that partiality we mentioned earlier to prevent accidental harm.
Exactly. That impartiality is key.
It sounds like this requires serious self-discipline as well.
Unwavering self-discipline, yes, including subjugating the flesh, controlling the passions, maintaining willing obedience to the behests of truth. It's about consciously mastering those lower impulses.
No easy task.
Definitely not presented as easy. And finally, understanding the bigger picture helps.
Like karma and reincarnation.
Precisely. Understanding those laws provides strong motivation for mental cleanup, right? You see the direct consequences. There's also advice to observe the nidana, the chain of causation, in daily life to sharpen intuition. And, importantly, just as we create negative skandhas and elementals, we can counteract them. By cultivating the opposite positive thoughts and virtues, you can apparently paralyze the negative effects.
So actively generating positivity can neutralize past negativity. That's hopeful. Okay, so it's a multifaceted path. Purity first, then elevating consciousness through heart focus and higher self-connection, strengthening that inner bridge, living ethically, practicing rigorous self-discipline, and understanding cosmic laws.
That's a good summary. It's a comprehensive approach to inner alchemy.
So, to kind of bring it together, these teachings make it clear. Negative thoughts aren't trivial. They actively damage our spiritual potential, pollute our energetic environment, rack up karmic debt, and block our progress.
Exactly. It's a powerful framework. But the key takeaway isn't just the danger, it's that mastery is possible. There is a clear, though demanding, path laid out. Focus on purity, connect with your higher nature, live ethically, be disciplined, and understand the laws you're working within.
It really maps out a transformation, doesn't it? From being pulled down by negativity to consciously choosing spiritual wisdom and hopefully compassionate action. And for you listening, maybe feeling a bit overwhelmed by all this, the hope is that this deep dive offers a clearer structure and some genuinely practical avenues to explore for yourself.
And it's worth pondering, perhaps, how even small, consistent shifts in your own thought patterns might ripple outwards, not just changing your own experience, but maybe subtly affecting the collective atmosphere, too. So maybe final thought to leave you with. Reflecting on all this, what's one single step towards greater mental purity, however small, that feels most resonant or achievable for you right now?